Oh my god, it is the final building episode of this series, and it is massive because we still had a lot to do in this park, and I wanted to have it finished before the DLC comes out on Thursday next week. So I'm finishing up the entire park in this video, and then on Monday I'm gonna do a massive tour. It's gonna be split in two, it's gonna be awesome, and I really hope that you're gonna get plenty of inspiration for your own build from it. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Let's get into it. Well, I've already gotten into it. In this video, you're gonna see me approach park building a little bit differently than the previous episodes of this series, and that's because the previous episodes were very much okay, I'm just gonna build a singular thing. It was very episodic. But for this one, because there was so much left to do, I could really unleash myself, and the building process, because of that, is really different. Like, at the start of this video, you saw me put down that aviary, you saw me put hotels way at the far end of the park, where we're nowhere near building there yet, and that's because when I approach a park build, I prefer to sort of lay down a bit of the groundwork ahead of time, just so I know where I'm working towards. Kind of like if you imagine it as telling a story, you need to have an ending in mind that you're working towards in order to have everything else make sense. Maybe that's a wrong metaphor to use, but that's just the thing that came to mind. So yeah, I laid down a bit of the groundwork, and I'm sort of all over the place in this build. You know, I hop from one point to the next, and that is usually how I would approach park building if I were to just build a park on my own for my own enjoyment, or for a full speed build like this. You know, I don't approach it one exhibit at a time. I go full out and I attack all of the park at once. I'm all over the place. So again, this is the happy side. This is all that we had left to do. I'm using all of the fancy path because it's the happy color, and all of the pink rocks and stuff like that to make it all pretty and nice and really separated from the scary side, which is on the other side. Now, this little guest section over here is a little different from usual. It's a very weird shape. That's not something I usually do. And I put the tables and chairs on the grass. I used the closed parasols. You can get these tables really close, so they sort of form a bigger table. And I thought that was like kind of a cute sitting area, you know, for people to sort of picnic style, I suppose. So I really like doing that for this time around. And my hope is that little ideas like that I share with you guys, that those inspire you for your builds. I feel like with the new DLC coming up, inspiration is a little bit more easy to come by, you know, when the bunny just did a parkour movement right there. But I feel like whenever there's new content in the game, inspiration comes a little bit more easily because we have all of these new exciting tools to work with. So I'm very much looking forward to the new maps, the new buildings, new decorations. We haven't seen yet what those are gonna be. By the way, I should say this. Usually when Frontier has a DLC coming up, their live stream before the release shows quite a bit of content. So they should have their weekly Jurassic World Evolution 2 live stream tomorrow. Their live streams are very slow paced. They are kind of difficult to watch sometimes, I will say that. But I will be watching that live stream, and I will be doing a summary of that live stream at the very end of it, if, of course, if they do reveal new stuff about the DLC. But like I said, they usually do in their live streams. They show off quite a bit of the new content. So I'm excited to see if history is going to repeat itself, and if we're gonna be seeing some new stuff tomorrow. And yeah, stay tuned to the channel to get like a summary of all of that. So you don't have to watch their full live stream if you don't want to. As I said, they can be a bit of a struggle to get through in their entirety. So if you're not subscribed yet to my channel, I hope that you consider doing so. I would love to have you join the channel. All right, so what we're working on right here is like a little aquatic stadium, I suppose. I initially wanted to use Mosasaurus because it's like the big wow factor, you know? And not every dinosaur or creature in this section of the park needs to be cuddly and cute. We can have some big ticket animals, like the T-Rex is on this side of the park, you know? But I actually decided against that, and I put Kronosaurus in there because it has similar wow factor to the Mosasaurus. You know, it does the whole shark eating jumpy thing that we all get quite a bit of a kick out of, but it is also just very cute. So I feel like that was a good compromise to make there. The Chronosaurus just flew in. And like this whole guest section in front of the stadium, I separated it from the rest of the park with fence just to make it like its own little section, make it feel more special, make it feel more like a separate attraction. So that's something I really like doing, just create this separate area using the concrete fence. What I kind of want, unfortunately the new DLC doesn't seem to be including new fences, but I really wish that we would get some new fence types, actually. It's weird that, we got the invisible fence from the Biosyn Dominion pack, but it's weird that they don't do that more often, because I would love a different kind of completely closed fence, right? We only have the concrete fence and then everything else is like metal wires. I wish we had an alternative to the concrete fence to really block off areas. Maybe wood paneling or logs or something like that. That would be really, really cool. And the other fence that I really want, of course, is a low fence. You see me use the concrete placeable barriers from the DFW decorations. I use those quite a lot in this park, and the frame rate suffers because of that, because it's really easy to just use an absolute ton of those, and it gets a little crazy. But I use those a lot because I feel like, especially certain guest areas, just need a little barrier, So I wish that they would introduce a low decorative fence like that. Now we have a tour going in the aviary with the tour actually briefly going outside the aviary to cross over the path over there, and that's something from my 10 tips for the aviaries video. Not a lot of people have watched that video, which I'm kind of sad about because there's some really cool stuff in that video, so I hope that you'll check it out if this idea sparks your interest. By the way, that big mound, which is on the right side of the screen right now, is like just off screen. You can see like the towers over there. That whole big mound, I didn't show you the creation of that, the fenceman placing, the building placements, because I'm gonna delete all of it, and I'll show you what I make of it instead. To keep this video as compact as possible, I didn't just put in 400 and sometimes even 1000% speed. I also cut out some stuff that I redid later anyway. Sometimes I leave those in so you can see like my thought process, I suppose, and you can see me changing things around, because that's important to show, right? It's important to show that you don't have to get it right, you don't have to get it perfect on the very first try. But yeah, for this one, I cut it out because it was a whole process that I'm gonna be redoing anyway, and I'm way more happy with the change that I made, with the alternative that I came up with. So here you go. I'm deleting, as I said, I'm deleting all of it. Get rid of it. I didn't like it at all. I couldn't figure out how to work with it. The area on top of the mound wasn't big enough for an exhibit, wasn't big enough for an aviary, but it was kind of too huge for just buildings, as in amenities and stuff like that. I didn't want to go too overboard with that. So instead I did this. I found I restructured the mound to put an aviary up there. It is a metal aviary, but again, this is another one of my tips from my 10 tips for the aviaries video. I'm really proud of that video. I really liked it. But I just really like the look of this. Like this aviary sunken down just enough that pedestrians can look over the concrete barrier, because we're burying the concrete barrier. I just think that looks so cool. And then I left this little area off to the side, which is lower down, so you can see the concrete base and the water that is shared like in the aviary and outside the aviary. And I just thought that looked very, very cool. Thematically, the metal aviary doesn't fit too well, because I wanted to only use glass on this side of the park and metal on the other side, on the spooky side. But this trick right here only works with this specific Jurassic Park aviary, so I had to make a slight exception. But I feel like it looks cool enough to justify it. Let me know in the comment down below if you agree with that. So just a ton of rock placements. I'm gonna be lining that entire path, like I said, with the concrete barriers and with planters. Honestly, I tested my PC and the game with this park, as I tend to do more and more. My park builds at the very start of Jurassic World Evolution 2, like right after its release, we had way fewer decorations. So my park builds weren't as detailed as they are currently, and I can really tell the difference, and that maybe the game is not properly optimized, because I have a really beefy PC. My PC should be able to handle this no problem at all. Like the game, it's way overpowered for the game, but it struggles. It struggles sometimes, especially on the Biosyn map. I feel like that map has some optimization issues in particular, but oh my god, the frame rate the frame rate is steadily going down as I put more and more detail into this park. But it's what you have to do to make an awesome park, right? It's just what you have to do. So up here on this mound, I just put 2 hotels, the aviary, and a viewing tower that sort of looks out over the rest of the park, because I feel like that gives a really cool perspective. Here I go with the concrete barriers. Oh god, so many. Oh, the frame rate is dying. But yeah, this is just like a super... what's it like sort of a VIP area. So these hotels are super special, and this specific aviary right here, like these dinosaurs, maybe it's like an extra ticket you need to buy to get up there with the monorail or something like that. Just a little separate section within the park. And I really think that using elevation in your park is so important to make it look more interesting. So I had to go up at some point. So this is what I decided to do with it. And I'm really happy with the result. I think it looks really cool. So I'm just like giving the mound a bit of definition, and I am going to use the initial idea that I had before that I scrapped entirely. I'm going to put an exhibit all the way around the mound. She rhymes now. Because that just makes good use of the space, I think. More decorations, more details. Can never have too many of those until, of course, your PC or your console explodes. Now, there is a real issue with if you use too many decorations. Not only is performance going to go down, at a certain point, your save file will just crap out on you. It'll be inaccessible. It'll be unsalvageable. I've been warned about this by other people, and in turn, I've warned you guys in a video I've done before, but honestly, I haven't run into that breaking point yet. Like I said, I acknowledge that frame rate goes down, there's quite a bit of lag, especially for me on this particular map at a certain point, especially when placing buildings or placing paths, there is a bit of a delay, so that's kind of annoying to work with. But I have not personally run into what we've called like the piece limit. You know, we know that there's something like that in the game, but it's so untangible that I feel like I'm not quite sure if it's a realistic risk to really be mindful of anymore. I don't know, maybe I'm giving the wrong advice right now. Maybe it also just depends on the power of your PC. So maybe the fact that my PC is so powerful allows me to put this much decorative stuff in my park with the only consequence of it being the dropped frame rate. I don't know, but I haven't personally run into that piece limit that's completely breaks your save file, which is a good thing, of course, because I would be absolutely devastated if if one of these parks, like at a certain point, just breaks and becomes inaccessible, because there's so much work that goes into a park like this. So I snaked this river around the mound, and that is actually going to be a big sauropod enclosure, just this really elongated enclosure. I thought the sauropods would be cool because, you know, they're quite big, so you can easily see them if you're on that separate guest section on top of the mound. You know, you can just look down at the sauropods. I thought that would be a pretty cool thing, a pretty cool exhibit. And then the rest is just again filling in the path work and working towards the end of the park. So for example, like just to get back to how different this building style is to what I did in previous episodes, like this right here, I should have built this before I built the stadium, right? But as you remember from the start of the episode, I built the stadium in its entirety first before coming back to this area. So that's what I mean with sort of hopping all over the place. And one of the benefits of it, I think, is that it helps you put in some stuff that you want to have added, and you don't want to run the risk that if you just unleash yourself and you start building and you just build spreading out further, you run the risk of not leaving enough space for the stuff you wanted. That's something I experienced on the other side of the park. I talked about this in the last episode. I was really saddened that I hadn't left a space for a ceratopsian exhibit, for example, because I think those would have been really cool, like, dangerous horned herbivores. They would have been a good fit for that side of the park. And I did manage to squeeze them into a different exhibit, by the way. You'll see that in the tour. But yeah, I was saddened that I didn't have enough space left for a dedicated ceratopsian exhibit like that. And that's because of that episodic building style, taking it one or two exhibits at a time. So the advantage of how I approach this build by just smashing it all together in a single episode is that I was able to put in some stuff down the line, like placeholder, to know for sure that I'd have space left for it. So that's why the Kronosaurus Stadium I built quite early in this video, even though it's literally one of the last attractions in the park, just so I would be sure that I didn't go overboard and I wouldn't encroach on too much territory and end up not having enough space for that big attraction, because I knew that I did want it. So just saying, just like going through the thought process here, because I don't know what else to talk about. We've been going on for over 15 minutes now. I have to fill the time somehow. Okay, serious Evo, come on. Get yourself together, girl. So what's interesting actually about this side of the park, as I was talking about, making sure I have enough space left to do this and that and such and so. Interestingly, on this side of the park, I ended up feeling like I had too much space. Like, it's one of my tips, don't be afraid to waste space, because that's something that just makes a park look really pretty and put together. Don't cram an exhibit into every single open space you have left, right? But on the spooky side of the park, I definitely felt like I had to use every inch of the space, because there was so much stuff I wanted to do, and I didn't feel like I had enough space. Whereas on this side, interestingly, I felt like, not that I had too much space, but I felt like, yeah, I can waste a little bit of space. So later in the park, like right by the stadium, there's definitely some wasted space there. So that's really interesting that I was so afraid of not having enough space left on this side, because that's the experience I had on the spooky side. And I ended up, yeah, I hesitate to use the term too much, because I feel like I used it in a pretty way. It turned out really well, but I had space left that I didn't feel like I had to fill with a dinosaur exhibit. I felt comfortable wasting a little bit of space. So maybe that's because of the different approach on this side, and maybe it is because I was more inspired for the spooky side, because it is such a different build, like a horror build. It was very different from what I usually do. Maybe that goes into it. But it was just interesting to note, one half of the park I was like, oh no, I don't have enough space. And on this side of the park I was like, oh, well, yeah, oh, and I guess that fits. And then I'll just leave this as a big promenade. That's cool. Anyway, so we're inside the aviary now. You can see that I have the Alamosaurus inside. I love the combination of sauropods and flying reptiles in an aviary. I don't know, it just looks so epic. You can take really good screenshots that way, by the way. And I decided to go for like this sort of desert biome-esque to sort of justify why it is in this big glass dome. For the Pyroraptor, I think we're getting to that a little bit later, actually. The Pyroraptor is also in an aviary, and I also did like a slightly different biome with that as well. Again, just to have it make sense that these animals are in a glass biome as opposed to just a regular exhibit. So this is the stadium area, and I'm just decorating it as you do, make it look special and pretty. And it's just really important that you give every area of the park the same amount of attention and the same amount of detail as everywhere else. I understand that at a certain point you might get a little, what's the term? Like a little bit exhausted with the decorations, I guess. Because that's definitely how I feel after a really long park build. You know, after a while, it's like, oh god, how often have I used this planter at this point? Or, oh yeah, I guess I have to use this fountain again. I have like 17 already. And it starts feeling a little boring, I guess. But you have to pull through, mate. You have to pull through. You have to keep adding those decorations. To make every bit of your park look as beautiful as the previous. But that is one of the reasons why I am very much looking forward to the Malta DLC, because it did say in the forum post that along with new buildings, it would come with new decorations as well. The Dominion Biosyn expansion introduced some fantastic decorations. Honestly, those are some of my favorites in the game. So I'm very much keeping my fingers crossed that the Malta decorations will be top tier as well. It'll be interesting though, what kind of decorations could we expect really? Are they gonna go for the black market angle? Because then decorations would be very utilitarian, you know, very similar to the DFW decorations. Because, you know, the black market illegal folks don't care about fountains, I would guess. So, I mean, I'm very curious to see what the decorations are going to be, but I hope that it is going to include pretty decorations and not more of what we technically already have with the DFW, like crates and transportation stuff, you know, things like that. I really need more fountains. I really need different planters. I need bigger decorations as well. Like the one big decoration we have is the biggest fountain. We need more of that. We need more skeletons. Honestly, ooh, this is interesting to think about. I feel like the Malta DLC would be the perfect excuse to give us more skeletal decorations, because you could pretend that these are like illegal skeletons, you know, that are for sale on the black market. I honestly feel like they could that's interesting. I hope that they consider that. That would be a really good way to get more skeleton decorations into the game, by saying that it's this illegal product that you can buy on the black markets. That's interesting. Ooh, fingers crossed for that one. Okay, so the exhibit that we're working on right now is the T-Rex exhibit. I went with the fluffy T-Rex to make it look a little bit nicer than the normal T-Rex. And I'm putting like this field of rocks in front of the fence here, and that's sort of as like an extra safety precaution. Oh yeah, we had a weird thing going on where the camera was bouncing. That was interesting. But like the point of this side of the park is not that all of the dinosaurs are cuddly. Case in point, we're adding a T-Rex. The point of this park is that you feel, as a visitor, you feel entirely safe. So security details like that are important. So there's a fence, yes, but there's like this extra feature of this this field of rocks, like this elevated field of rocks that the T-Rex wouldn't really be able to stand on anyway without like breaking an ankle, which is unpleasant to say the least. So it's just like extra security, but without looking like extra security. You know what I mean? It's very like in a zoo, for example, if you go for a zoo, right, all of the dangerous animals, they have like this moat around their exhibit that they can't jump over. There's like a very natural looking barrier between you and the animals. They don't put a big metal barbed wire fence between you and the animals. Not the good zoos, at least, you know what I mean. So when I think of security for the beautiful side of the park, I didn't want to use, for example, the Jurassic Park 3 fence. That looks very secure. I would feel I would feel relatively safe behind that fence, but it's so menacing looking. It's not pretty. It's cool, but it didn't fit with the theme of this side of the park. So that's why I went with like a little bit of an unorthodox safety feature of just a like an extra barrier of rocks, and I feel like that turned out quite well. In the meantime, as I've rambled on incessantly as you do, we've moved on from the T-Rex exhibit, and now we're back. Look at that. Sorry, I am such a mess, folks. It's kind of difficult to fill these speed builds with narration entirely. So here I had this little space lift. I decided to turn it into an exhibit because why not? I honestly had no idea what I was going to put in this exhibit because, as I said, I had more space than I felt that I absolutely needed. So it was a nice surprise, honestly. I guess we could put it that way. I think I ended up putting Changjusaurus in there. Yes, it's a very small exhibit, but you know, we're going for the zoo frame of mind here, right? Zoo animals are also in very small enclosures, and that's the case here as well. Not for every species, but for some of them, like the Changjusaurus, that's a very small exhibit for it, but we're just gonna pretend that it's okay because exploiting animals for capitalism. Okay, let's not get dark with it. So, what's next? Hold on, my screen is frozen. There we go. So this is the final exhibit that I'm gonna make, and I'm gonna sink it down a little bit just so people have a nice elevated view from the big promenade over there. And it's gonna be a herbivore exhibit. I think I went with Werchosaurus, Nigersaurus, and something else. I can't quite remember. All of that stuff, of course, you will see during the tour, which will come next Monday. Mark your calendars. So I had the invisible fence around it just for realism's sake, but I also did the same thing as I did, or well, sort of the same thing as I did with the T-Rex side, and I put like on the little angle, the angled terrain, I put down rocks to sort of also create this natural barrier between the guests and the dinosaurs, and I just feel like it looks really pretty. Like the invisible fence is really cool, but it doesn't feel like enough, you know. It feels like it needs a little bit extra, so that's why I went with this this rocky texture for that area. And now here we go. As I said, I guess I'll use these fountains again because I just needed something big to fill up this big space over here. So I did the fountain with the tables and chairs combination that I really like, just encircling the fountain with these seating areas that makes it makes the overall decoration a little bigger. You know, it's the fountain plus this ring of tables and chairs, and I just really I really like how it looks. I think it looks pretty. I can't believe that this park build is now done. As I speak, as I watch this, as you guys watch me finishing it up, it is done. It's been a really extensive build, but it's been very enjoyable for me, and I hope it's been a fun series for you as well. If you want to see like future park building series like this, please leave a comment down below what you would like to see. Maybe I'm toying with a swamp park, although as I say that, I feel like a swamp park should also go on the Dominion Biosyn Sanctuary, and honestly, I've built a lot of parks here recently, so I feel like we need to move on from this map, like take a little bit of a break. So we'll probably be doing something with the new Malta maps soon. So yeah, if you want to see a full building series on those new maps, let me know in the comment down below what you would like to see, and yeah, of course, subscribe so you don't actually miss anything. I will be covering the live stream tomorrow. I will be covering the new content as it comes out next week, and I hope that you'll join me in excitement for that. And don't forget, the full tour of this park is coming next week on Monday. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the game.